Today's video is going to be a bit of a weird one. This year, I took one of the most powerful psychedelic substances on the planet, and it completely changed my life in ways I did not expect. In this video, I'm going to talk about my experience with ayahuasca and the main lessons I learned so you can benefit from it without taking mass amounts of drugs and tripping balls in the jungle. So if you don't know what ayahuasca is, it's when you combine two specific plants, you mix them together into a teriyaki-like substance, you consume it, and you trip major balls. Before I delve into the main lessons I learned and what they taught me, I need to give a disclaimer that this is not me promoting psychedelics or any form of drugs. This video is for entertainment purposes only. Always consult your doctor when you are thinking of consuming any type of substance. And again, this is not me recommending it. I'm not saying to go out and do it. I am just talking about my own personal experience. That is it. To give you a bit of context on my journey, I first started with magic mushrooms when I was 13. I did it before smoking weed or drinking alcohol. And that was really big thing for me because I viewed myself in a different lens and I viewed the world in a different lens going forward from that. Since that moment, I took magic mushrooms multiple times. I did LSD, I've done MDMA, stuff like that. And I've seen psychedelics as a tool to step outside of your normal frame of thinking and observe your normal life and your normal thoughts. And when you can do that from a different frame, you can make changes in your life that are very powerful. So that's my experience with psychedelics before I actually did ayahuasca. Now, I heard about ayahuasca years and years ago, and I knew it was kind of like the final boss of psychedelics, and I knew I had to be in a good place in life before I actually went down that rabbit hole. So I put it off for many, many years. And fast forward to this year, I was in a good place financially. I had location freedom and I just felt like I was in a good headspace. So I consulted my based spiritual friend, Sasha. Shout out to Sasha. And she recommended that I attend a specific retreat when it comes to ayahuasca. So I hit up the organizer of that retreat. She was a psychologist, Lauren Taus. Hopped on a call with her and she kind of ran me through what to expect. She vetted me to see if I was a good fit. And yeah, I said, yeah, let's sign me up. And I coerced my two roommates to do it with me. Fast forward to May 28th, where I went to go do the ayahuasca in Costa Rica. And I didn't know what to expect going into this. I built it all up in my head. You know, you hear people having bad trips, you hear people having profound experiences, and I just didn't know what to expect. So I was prepped for the worst. And we took the ayahuasca, and when you go back to your mat, you're not allowed to talk to anyone next to you. You're just supposed to go through your own trip. So I'm sitting there, we're all sitting in silence for a good 30 minutes, waiting for it to kick in. I'm sitting there and I look over to my roommate Taylin on the right, and he's just got this bucket in front of him. He's holding this bucket. I'm like, oh, here we go. He's gonna throw up already. And he's holding it, and then he starts twirling it. Just twirling in his hand. I'm like, what the hell? What's going on? And then I see him hold the bucket in front of him, and then he proceeds to put it on his head. And at that moment, I knew, I'm in for a ride today. I'm going deep down the rabbit hole because this stuff lasts around 6 hours. So I'm just waiting for this to kick in. I'm starting to feel a little bit. The shaman's starting to sing. There's a little band there too. They're playing music. And as the music's starting to rise, I'm starting to feel the ayahuasca working more in my body. And to give you context before I even talk about this trip, I went to a therapist 9 months before, and I continuously saw him once a week, and I was just talking about my life. And I wasn't in a place where I was depressed or I was in a bad place in life where I needed to talk to somebody, but I know I went through a lot of stuff growing up, and I knew it was good to talk about it, just kind of like maintenance, right? So one big thing that came from that leading up to the ayahuasca retreat was my therapist was telling me I need to embrace and feel the emotions I felt as a kid. And I asked him, how do I do that? Give me the steps. What's the, play by play? And he told me there is none. You just got to feel it. And I was kind of frustrated because I didn't know how to do that. Especially for men, we're taught to suppress our emotions, just be tough and be strong. And they don't teach you how to be in tune with your emotions. So I was struggling to do that. But when I started to feel the ayahuasca kick in, it came naturally. It wasn't me consciously trying to do it. The ayahuasca just brought out the emotions I felt as a kid. The feelings of low self-worth, the feelings that I'm not good enough, the feelings of hopelessness. I watched my mother lose herself to crack addiction. The feelings of just being alone, not having that masculine figure in my life. My father, he was a crack addict and he wasn't in my life much. The feeling of craving that role model in my life and having someone there for me, someone I can confide in and talk to and just be open with. And I just didn't feel like I had that growing up. So I started to feel these emotions come up and tears just started rolling down my face. I felt all of this just hit me, but it wasn't tears of sadness, it was tears of relief. Like, yes, I could finally feel all of this. And it was such a beautiful experience for myself because it was just all, I feeling stuff that I felt like I suppressed for years. And I got to a point where I was in my mind and it was all black and I could see myself as a child and it was me as an adult approaching him. The child was scared and he felt really alone and just on the defense. And I approached that child and I just kind of held him by the hand and I looked at him and I said, hey, you know, I got it from here. You don't need to be scared. It's okay. In a sense, I was the parent, the father figure, the masculine role model I wish I had growing up. It was super powerful for me because I realized, you know, I was really looking for that role model growing up, but realizing, you know, I can be that for myself. And it was really validating because it gave me the power. It wasn't like I was going out to chase something. I realized, you know, I could be that person this whole time. It sounds weird, you know, you're being your own parent, but it was a big reframe for me. And I realized, you know, I need to take better care of my body. I need to take better care of my mind. I need to take better care of, you know, the relationships in my life and not treating myself like I'm a child, but having empathy for myself like I'm taking care of a child, because we all have that inner child in ourselves. You know, a lot of us are seeking validation in different ways because we didn't get attention as a child or we didn't get needs met. We're looking for the approval of others. We're consuming maybe porn or food or sugar, whatever kind of substance, in a way to cope for the emotions we're not allowing ourselves to feel. We're suppressing it in other ways. And another big lesson I had that relates to this is, you know, growing up, I didn't feel worthy. I felt like I was the side character in someone else's movie. And I always saw my brother as the leader in life. I was that person that didn't feel like I had control of my life. I didn't feel like a leader. And a big thing for me that came up was realizing just because my older brother is older doesn't mean he's the leader. And I don't mean that in a way where it's a power structure. I realized, you know, my brother needs me to be a leader at times. And I realized I wasn't being a good brother in a lot of ways. I realized I was just letting him take the burden of a lot of the stuff with our family, like my mother passing. That was a huge thing for our family, and my brother really stepped up to the plate and he made sure we were having family dinners. He was making sure everyone was feeling okay, and he was that strong rock for everybody. And meanwhile, I just felt this intense anger for the whole situation, and I felt this guilt on myself, and I retracted a lot from my family. I didn't check in as much as I could have with everybody, and it really hurt me to realize that I should have been more of a leader in my brother's life and my sister's and my grandma and everyone's life. It was empowering for me because I realized I have this gift where I've had the feelings of low self-worth. I've suffered a lot in my childhood and just not feeling good enough. But those feelings were a gift. Those experiences were a gift because I know what it's like. And I've overcome a lot of that stuff. And I realized because I have that experience, I can relate to people who've gone through the same thing. And if I'm a leader, then I can actually help these people in their life. I can show up and I can relate to them and I can actually impact them. You know, you have these people on social media that are flexing the Rolexes and the Lambos, and they're just telling you, you know, rack up a body count and the alpha male, all this bullshit. But what real leadership is when you wear your heart on your sleeve, where you show your vulnerabilities, your chinks in your armor. And I'm not saying be a victim and say, oh, poor me and all this bullshit, this victimhood stuff that you see nowadays, but realizing, hey, I have gone through stuff and maybe you're going through stuff, and that's totally fine. And that, you know, it's not going to be easy, and don't expect it to be easy. You don't have to have everything figured out, and it's not supposed to be some sunshine and rainbow adventure. You're going to go through dark times, but that's okay. And you shouldn't let that skew your view on the world. You shouldn't let that take you down and make you cope for it in these other superficial ways. And I think we need more men, especially, showing up in this role of showing their vulnerability and showing, hey, I don't got everything figured out, but this is what I'm doing to improve. And, you know, maybe my lessons can help you as well. And I really felt that. And I felt very empowered to see myself as the person that's been on both sides of the spectrum. And I realized I need to step up more as a leader and not just take the role of the follower in a lot of these ways. And I need to be a leader, not for the power dynamic aspect of it, but for the way you can show up in people's lives and actually change their lives. Another lesson I realized was, I wasn't showing up in a lot of my friends and family's life. Again, with my brother, where I never asked him, hey, how are you doing, man? Like, actually, how are you feeling? You got these big changes in your life and, grandpa and mom passing away. How are you doing? And actually being there and actually having that talk and being vulnerable. And again, that comes back to leading with your heart. Everyone's so scared to talk about their emotions. They're scared to share their vulnerabilities. But when you lead with your heart, where you lead with vulnerability first and you're the one to make the first step, people are receptive to that. And that's what we need more of. We need more people taking action first and not waiting for the other person to be in that role. So I did that with my brother. After the trip, I had a good call with him and I talked to him and I apologized. I told him about, where I was at and how I feel like I could be a better brother. And I appreciated him and I loved him very deeply. And he was very moved by that. We both had a good cry on that call. But, looking at everywhere in life, we have the superficial conversations, but how many times, when was the last time you had a good heart to heart with your friend or your family members? People really need that. They need that deeper conversation. And I think we all could do a better job at showing up in all of our friends and family's lives. And finally, I'll just kind of touch on this, was I felt like I lived my whole life. And I felt this feeling that I was an old man and, I was at the end of my life, but I was looking back on everything and I was very grateful for life, realizing that we really do only get one shot at this. And I think a lot of us, we put off that career change we want to make. We put off doing the tough conversation. We put off X, Y, and Z. But we're all going to die one day. We're going to get to our deathbeds and we're going to realize, damn, that was life. That was it. That was the show. And I felt like I lived my whole life and I felt very fulfilled. And I felt I had this family. I had this amazing wife. I had these amazing kids. And I just felt this deep appreciation for it. And it's funny because I don't have that yet, but I felt this deep appreciation for it. And I felt like I knew it was all going to work out. And I was very grateful for it. And just realizing we're all part of one big system. This life, death, you and me, everything is all part of this big organism, this universe. And it's a beautiful thing, this exchange of energy and life and death and the dance between all of it. I left with a deeper appreciation for it all, a deep empathy for myself, a deep empathy for this universe and the people in my life and how we're all connected. And it was a beautiful thing. And I feel like we're all disconnected from these different aspects of our lives because we're always plugged into the phone, the next dopamine hit, the X, Y, and Z, and just disconnecting for that week. I didn't touch my phone and I felt so damn good. I felt like time was moving slower in a good way, where I had this appreciation and I felt a deep connection with nature. And going out of ayahuasca, I would say I do feel like there is a higher power out there, and I feel like we are connected in a big system, and it feels beautiful. And it sounds cheesy and corny, but yeah, those are the big lessons in my journey there. So again, I'm not encouraging the use of psychoactives or ayahuasca, just talking about my experience. I hope you found that interesting. If you want me to talk more about psychedelics and my experiences with stuff, or even go deeper on my ayahuasca journey, then let me know in the comments. But that is all I have for today. I hope you have a kick-ass day, and much love.